Hey, this is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. You know, the last part of Joshua 24:15 has been quoted from people of all denominations in all walks of life. It says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, Yahweh." I've seen this verse put on plaques, pictures, even placed straight on walls. The sad part is, I've seen many take this verse and make it mean for them, "As for me and my house, we will show where everyone else is wrong." While others make it mean, "As for me and my house, we will take it upon ourselves to correct all others." Yet others make it mean, "As for me and my house, we will mock, belittle, and condemn anyone who differs with us." But it says, "As for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh." We're instructed to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. Please note the fear and trembling part. Sometimes it seems many work out their salvation in pride and arrogance. You know, Yahweh himself said, "Come, let us reason." He didn't say, "Come now, let me show you where you're wrong." And if there was anyone who could legitimately say that, it would be him. But he didn't say that. He said, "Come, let us reason." I've said this before in interviews, but you know, we're not called to change people's minds. We're called to live and share the truth as we see it, and do so in love. If I could talk you into something, then someone else can come right around and talk you out of it. You have to see the truth for yourself and then walk in it the best you can, learning and growing in it every day. So we have to do our best at what we believe the Father is giving us as individuals. Let me say that again. We have to do our best at what we believe the Father is giving us as individuals. Scriptures say when Yeshua returns, everyone will follow the law, the Torah. That's why we read this in Isaiah. Many peoples will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem." And these exact same words are also found in Micah 4:2, word for word. You know, just as there are differences in the general Christian faith, you know, that being, you've got the Baptists and the Lutherans and the Methodists and the Episcopalians, all these different ones that go along with them as well. And then those even have different variations in themselves, you know, like the Baptists. Well, you've got Southern Baptist, Northern Baptist, General Baptist, First, Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth Baptist. You know what I'm saying? All the variations of those. Well, you're going to find various views within those who pursue Torah just the same. So just as when someone says, "Well, I'm a Christian," well, you have to in turn say, "Well, which kind? You know, Methodist, Baptist, what are you?" Don't assume all Torah pursuant believers are the same either. You know, just as with different denominations in the Christian faith, you're going to find just as many, if not more maybe even, with those who pursue the Torah. You're going to find those, you know, with different calendar views, which I personally believe Matthew 24:29 specifically shows that, you know, it says, you know, the heavenly bodies are going to be shaken. Well, I personally believe that's Yahweh resetting the calendar at that time. At that time, when Yeshua returns, the heavenly bodies are shaken, and it's a calendar reset. At least that's how I see it, because that means we're all going to be on the same calendar at that time. It's my opinion anyway. I just see like it's all of the heavenly bodies vibrating back into their original position. It's, again, that's just how I see it. But again, you've got all these different calendar views, and I respect them all. I'm just thankful that, people are at least acknowledging he's got a calendar, you know what I'm saying? But then you're going to find, all the differences in opinions of how to pronounce the name. You used to pronounce it this way, or you pronounce it that way. Well, this scholar says this. Well, these scholars over here say this. You're going to find a scholar for every viewpoint, and they're all got their credentials. They've all got this, but they're all going to differ. So you're going to find these different variations, just like you have, again, with all the Christian faith. Was this still around? Well, the tongues are done. All this stuff. It's like there's so many arguments that people forget that happened in the Christian faith a long time. There were staunch division. That's why they separated. All the different denominations came about. So you're going to see that here. And you're going to see, differences as even like, when does the Sabbath start? Well, how do you really observe it? I don't get upset if people disagree with me on anything. That's fine. I'm just thankful that people want to pursue the Word. Even if we interpret the Word differently, as long as we're all learning and growing, He will teach us along the way. I do wish people would be more willing to pray for those who differ with them instead of wanting to argue with them and bash them. That's actually why I made this specific meme back in 2017. I just wish people would learn to value one another, even if we differ. And the differences may be vastly different. Okay, I get that. But can we not at least acknowledge the fact that these people are wanting to pursue the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? We all acknowledge Him. And, if you differ with them, okay, but does that give you a right to condemn them, to bash them? In my opinion, no. I think it gives you the obligation to pray for them. Well, over the years, I've had people ask me, how we got to where we're at today. What's our story? How do we come from being in the church to all of a sudden now we're teaching Torah? Well, when I was young, my family was in the United Pentecostal Church until I was 4. From then on, I was brought up in the Assembly of God Church and served in several positions there. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was a Royal Ranger leader. I was a youth leader, which at that time was called Christ Ambassadors back in the day, And I later became a youth pastor at a non-denominational church where I served for 5 years. Angel and I were, at that time we were married, and we were serving as youth pastors there. And I did youth evangelism after that, and being a praise and worship leader at a small local assembly as well. And then I became a pastor at a small church. And after that, I started a traveling Christian comedy team, which I have to say was a lot of fun. And it was during this time that we started attending a very large Baptist church. And while attending this church, I served in various positions as well, from children's church director to interim youth pastor, and later became the director of both the live and post-video production of the church. And it was at this time when I came to the understanding of the Torah still being for all believers today. From there, I teamed up with a friend, and we started 119 Ministries. And then several years after that, here we are today at torahfamily.org. Well, to kind of give a little more into that, when first coming to the understanding of Torah, a friend, shared some teachings with me and said, you need to watch these because these are going to change everything, and I'm going, oh, okay, what are you getting into now, type of a thing, And so I began watching them over the next couple of weeks, and I would take notes as I'm watching things. I'm watching the videos, and I'm taking notes, and I'm saying, oh, that's good, and I'm going, oh, no, that's not right, and I'm writing my notes down, and then I'd see something, well, that's not even close to right, because Paul said this and such, writing all my notes. Well, as I kept taking notes, I was seeing some valid points being made. Some I couldn't prove wrong, but they didn't seem to fit either. You're trying to gel it with my worldview, if you will. Well, it came to the point where I was at a crossroads. And either, one view had to be right and one view had to be wrong. And I had been going back and forth, on the topic for those 2 weeks. Seeing it, not seeing it. Seeing it, not seeing it. Seeing it, no, that can't be right at all. Then all of a sudden, no, I'm seeing it all over again. It's like I was going back and forth. I was really struggling because I'm a black and white kind of guy. It's like it's either right or it's wrong. It's this or it's that. It can't be a blend type of a thing. And it came to the point one evening when I came home from work and I walked through the kitchen and I told Angela, I said, I'm going straight to the room. I don't want anyone bothering me. She knew that those last couple of weeks I was really struggling with it all and just trying to make sense of it all, trying to figure out where we're going to go here. What's going on. And well, so I walked to the kitchen and I walk into my room and I threw my Bible on the bed and I told God, I said, I am not reading this again until you tell me what's going on, because I'm not getting it. I was quite honestly, I was mad. I was frustrated at God. Now, I'm wrong or right, I'm just telling you. I was mad. I was upset. Yeah, that was it. All my life, I was told one thing, and I preached it, mind you. Okay, I wasn't just told it. I didn't just believe it. I preached it. And now I'm seeing a solid case to prove it wrong. What's going on? And so I prayed and I cried and I cried and I prayed. I was just trying to make sense of it all. And I think when it came right down to it, I think I was struggling with pride more than anything, because there's no way I could be wrong type of a thing. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't saying those words, but I may as well have been, I think. Because surely I wasn't wrong, and surely there's no way the church fathers could have been wrong all these thousands of years and stuff like this. But as I kept looking, everything I was studying was showing otherwise. I was wrong. And hey, these church fathers, well, maybe they were wrong too. Who's to say they were right? Just because they did it, that makes it right? And it was the next morning on my way to work when it happened, if I can say it that way. I had just exited off of Highway 111 onto Highway 55, heading in towards St. Louis. And it was, it was dark that morning. It was, New Year's Eve day, and going into work, so it was really dark in the morning, wintertime. And as I got onto the Highway 55, I couldn't have been on that highway more than a half mile. And it was like all of a sudden a flip just switched in my mind, just like that. And suddenly everything made sense. Suddenly dots started connecting that I had never seen before. I started saying out loud as I'm driving, I'm going, well, if that means this, well, then that means this. And if this means that, and that means this. And it's like, that explains this. And suddenly I'm driving down the highway. Man, I bet my car was glowing because I was excited. It's like suddenly everything was clicking and so many things were adding up just like that. And things I had never seen before were suddenly making sense. It was truly like I was born again. And I felt like it was joy unspeakable and full of glory, There's no other way of saying it. That's just what I was feeling at that time, that moment. I'm driving into work and I'm serious. I would not be surprised if my car looked like it was glowing because that's what I felt. And no, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm just saying that. But, there's just no other way of saying that that's what I felt. I felt joy unspeakable and full of glory. It was just I felt born again. I was excited. And that day was New Year's Eve, as I said, and we had a skeleton crew at work. And so there wasn't much work to be done that day. So thankfully that resulted in me getting the opportunity to actually study that day. And, I couldn't write my notes fast enough. And I would get a thought, I had to write it down super fast because I was afraid I was going to forget it and never think of it again, So I'm just blazing, writing stuff down as fast as I could, and I was just so excited. And as my mind was flooding with things that, I don't know, it was just making sense. And at one point in that day, I remember specifically writing, I feel like Josiah cleaning out the temple, which is in 2 Kings 23. And as I was writing that down, as I'm writing it down, I'm thinking, why am I writing this down? Because it's not like a biblical note to connect a dot here or there. It's like, it didn't make any sense. All I can think of is, why was I writing it down? But I knew I was writing it down because I guess I was just so excited about it. But I was still thinking as I'm writing it down, why am I writing this? Well, there was a reason for me writing that down. Just a couple of days later, I walked into our Sunday school room, and the person filling in for our regular teacher said, okay, our first lesson of the year, I thought it would be good, for us to look at a story found in 2 Kings 23. My ears popped up, and yep, you guessed it. He was talking on the story of Josiah. And it was as if I could hear the Spirit say in my mind, that's why I had you write that down. Did I hear it say a voice? No, I didn't hear a voice. But I felt in my heart, that's why he wanted me to write that down. So I would not forget that moment and connect it to this moment, And the teacher said that day, he said, I really feel that God is wanting us to clean our spiritual houses for this year, And as he said that, I remember thinking, oh, you have no idea how much he wants you to clean your house, type of a thing, I just chuckled, I'm thinking if you had any clue what's going through my mind, And that morning at church, I had a total of 5 confirmations on things, and that was the first one. Now, honestly, I cannot remember the following 3, but I do remember the last one like it was yesterday. It was when I was sitting in the back of the church for the third service, the last service of the day, and I was watching all the camera operators. Being over the camera ministry, I was, watching them to making sure the operator's doing good and this, that, and the other, and how can I, help them or whatever, critique them later on down the road. Well, that being said, I really wasn't focused on the message that morning. I was just focused on watching the big screens, so I wasn't really, I was hearing him here and there, but I was more so watching the screen. Are they, getting him in the screen right? If he's looking this way, or that kind of stuff. So I was just watching the big screens only for that reason. And I was just doing that. Well, something happened that morning, and that I guess it was just weird because our pastor did something that he had never, ever done before. He looked right into the live camera. I mean, he stared right into the live camera, and again, which in turn means he looked right at me. Because what was I doing? I was looking at the big screen. So when he looked right at the camera, it was as if he was looking right at me. And it was so odd. And even, it kind of caught me off guard. I'm going, what's he doing? Because he never does that, And as he's looking right at me, he said with a real strong and even stern voice, if you will, he said, I'm telling you, I am is talking to you. I just sat there and chuckled. I'm going, really? This is taking place? Because it's not like I needed that confirmation, but it was like the icing on the cake, because he did something he had never done before. It wasn't in his character to do that. And here he is, he's doing it, and he says those words as if he's talking right to me. It was just, I don't know. I just remember going home from church that day, and I was on cloud nine. And I was telling Angela all about the confirmations that had happened that morning, and she was just looking at me as I'm driving, and she was just smiling ear to ear, and of course, we ended up leaving that church and having our name dragged through the mud and, having a mass email going out saying that we're now following winds of doctrine, different doctrine, of course, which is not of the Father, and pretty much losing all of our friends. And whenever our friends would see us in the store, well, they would just pretty much hide from us and walk the other way. Yeah. But, it was okay because we had so much peace. And regardless of what people were saying about us behind our back, and we were growing leaps and bounds in the Word like never before. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Knowing where I'm at today and how much He has shown me, oh my goodness, it's like, that's just crazy, and well, I gotta, I need to share one more thing. There's another confirmation that I feel it's kind of cool. About 6 months before coming to the understanding of Torah, I had a former student from our youth, contact me via mail, snail mail, not email, but snail mail. And she wrote out, how she had a dream about me. And in the dream, she saw me planting these huge seeds in the middle of the desert. I mean, just in the sand. It was hot and sunny. I'm sweating. And I'm just planting these huge seeds in the middle of this dry, barren land, nothing around. And she said as she was watching me in her dream, she was thinking to herself, what's he doing? And then the scene changed in the dream to where she instantly saw my perspective of me planting. She was seeing through my eyes. And in the middle of me planting, she saw where, I looked up and I looked back from where I came. I looked back from where I had been planting. And she saw what I was seeing, a huge forest of trees, like redwood trees. I'm talking huge trees, tall. And they were the seeds that I had been planting. But there were no leaves on the trees. No leaves. Because there was so much fruit on the trees, there was no room for even one leaf. The fruit was packing the trees. There's just no room for the leaves because there's so much fruit. Not even one spot because the fruit was so much on the trees. And then she said the scene changed. And to where she saw me getting ready to eat a strawberry, a big, luscious looking strawberry, if you will. And it was just perfectly ripe and ready to be eaten. And then she said, I took a bite of it and immediately I started gagging on it. And then she said, it's like the outside looked good, but the inside was rotten and filled with maggots. And she said, I don't know the meaning of the dreams, but I felt, I was supposed to tell you about them. And then she said, knowing that the strawberries don't grow on trees, I feel that part of the dream was a completely separate item from the first part. And she said, it was like, since strawberries don't grow on trees, I knew that wasn't anything to do with that. But I want you to know that I feel that dream represents someone in your life, either a close friend or someone who you greatly value in your life, but they're not who you think they are. And so I took it to heart and prayed about it and always, I kept it. In fact, I've got it somewhere. I don't know where I've got it, but I've got it somewhere, And, well, now again, that was 6 months before coming to the understanding, of Torah being for today. Well, that all being said, as I mentioned, the church sent out a mass email about me, and that was it took place on a Friday. Well, that mass email went out from the associate pastor of the church, one of my best friends. Needless to say, it was a little disheartening having that happen from such a close friend. And well, on that same evening of that day, of him, sending out the email, dragging our name through the mud and whatever else, following winds of doctrine, blah, 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 blah. Well, Angela had went out to get a few things before Sabbath, and we had started a tradition of getting flowers for Sabbath. And so she picked up some at the store for that Sabbath. Well, when she got home, she walked in, all happy, and and to the living room, and says, "Hey, look at the new flowers," and I looked at them, and I stared at them. I'm just like, I like this. I had this blank look on my face, and she goes, "Well, what's wrong?" And I said, "Angie," I said, "look at the flowers." And she's looking at him like what? I go, "Look at the flowers." And she goes, "What?" She couldn't get it, and well, she didn't see it, but in the middle of the flowers was a great big red plastic strawberry. And I go, "Angie, the strawberry." And she looks at it, she goes, like that. It's like suddenly it was like this was the strawberry from the dream, representing my friend that the Father was warning me of, who wasn't the friend I thought. And so we see this on the exact same day of him doing that, and I know I'm sure somebody say, "Oh, that's just coincidence." Well, maybe. But all I can say is it meant something for us. It was a confirmation that the Father was saying, "Look, you know what? I got your back. This is going to happen, but I'm telling you ahead of time." Because it rocked my world back then. But at the same time, it was a joy. Like I said, knowing where we're at and seeing what we were seeing, and him just saying, "Gotcha. I got your back. I knew this was going to happen. I want you to know that." And so, yeah. We lost all our friends. Our name was dirt to everyone who we knew. But, we couldn't have been happier. We have been growing leaps and bounds. Now, ever since then, I still get people say, "Oh, Steve, you should read Galatians." Well, I have. Please see my teaching, The Tutor, that will help you with that. And then you have people saying, "Oh, Steve, we're not under the law anymore because of Jesus dying on the cross." Well, you're right. But the curse of the law is not the law itself. The curse of the law came from breaking the law. So he delivered us from our disobedience so we can walk in obedience again. That's why he said nothing would pass from the law until heaven and earth pass away. And then we've had people say, "Oh, Steve, you're just being a Pharisee and a Judaizer." Well, actually, those who don't pursue the Torah but hold to the traditions of the church are actually the ones who are more like the Pharisees and a Judaizer. Please see my teaching simply titled, "Don't Be a Judaizer." And then I've got those who've said, "Oh, Steve, no one can follow the law. That's why Jesus came to save us from the law." Well, actually, no. Deuteronomy says the exact opposite. Please see my teaching titled "Everything." And then I've had those who'll say, "Oh, Steve, it's all about circumcision of the heart now." Well, no, it's always been about circumcision of the heart. It's always been that way. And then you got those who say, "Oh, Steve, the law is for the Jews and the church is separate now." Well, no, we are grafted into Israel. Please see our teaching simply titled "The Assembly." And then I've had people say, "Oh, Steve, Paul taught against the law and how we are now under grace." Well, that's actually not quite the case, as we even have Peter's warning of how Paul's writings have been misunderstood. Please see our teaching simply titled "The Writings of Paul." There are so many other things that have been said to us, and we have made many other teachings addressing many of those things as well, many of which are on our Faith Foundations page. Please consider going there sometime if you have any questions as to why we pursue the Torah, which is simply God's instructions for us to walk in. It takes a little time to overcome all that we've been taught in the church. It doesn't happen overnight, and it can take a little time. And quite honestly, I'm not here to convince you of anything. All I can say is, as for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh. And we believe that is followed through just as Joshua would have done so himself. That being pursuing Yahweh's Torah. You know, Psalm 119:14 says, I rejoice in following your statutes, as one rejoices in great riches. And that is us today. We pray that our teachings are able to help you learn and grow in His eternal Word, one step at a time, no matter where you're at in your walk with Him. You know, wherever you're at, whatever your view, make it your utmost desire to serve Him. Don't mock or condemn others for not believing as you. Pray for them. You will never argue someone into the kingdom. Never. Let me say that again. You will never, ever argue someone into the kingdom. So pray for them. Pray for them. It's far better for them to hear His voice than yours. Witness daily. When necessary, use words. As for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.